Few people in history are as instantly recognizable or invoke as much dread as Adolf Hitler. Hitler and the Nazis cut a swath of destruction through Europe and were responsible for the death of millions. But how was a man born in Austria, to a family of no consequence, able to seduce the nation of Germany into following his evil schemes? Germany, which was a country leading the world in science and culture. The answer to this question lies in the trenches of World War I and the humiliating defeat suffered by the Germans at the hands of the Allies. World War I had been the most deadly and destructive war the world had seen up to that point, and for the most part Germany had fared relatively well. However, once America had entered the war formally, they simply could not match the added manpower of the United States and were forced to surrender to the Allies in humiliating conditions in the Treaty of Versailles. While Woodrow Wilson wanted a more lenient punishment for the Germans, the British and the French were convinced that they needed to be severely punished. And so the terms of Versailles were very, very much against the German people. The Germans were forced to reduce their military, both the number of soldiers that they could have and in the types of weapons that their army could have. They were forced to lose various territory to different countries, and they were forced to accept blame for the war, for starting it, and amassed a huge war debt that they needed to pay back to the Allies. The harsh terms of Versailles had a disastrous effect on Germany, in particular its economy. German currency plunged to near worthlessness. It was more cost-effective for children to use money as toys than to purchase toys with money. Similarly, it was much, much cheaper for people to use money as wallpaper than to use that money to purchase wallpaper. Discontent with their living conditions, many Germans began joining a whole slew of new political factions that were forming all over Germany. Adolf Hitler was no exception to this. Originally, he was tasked with spying on some of these parties by the army that he was still a part of. However, upon attending a meeting of the German Workers' Party, quickly was won over by their politics. He started attending their meetings and became a full-blown member. Quickly, the party recognized his skills in both propaganda and in public speaking, and he rose to the ranks to become one of the party's most prominent members. The German Worker Party evolved into what is now called the Nazi Party. Hitler became its chief minister of propaganda and started giving public speeches that drew thousands. Hitler railed against a number of things, from the conditions of Versailles to supporting the popular belief that the reason the Germans lost World War I was not because of the soldiers or anything the Allies had done, but rather that the German army had been stabbed in the back by politicians and Jews and communists back home.
Es kam die Zeit, da man sich nur dann mit Stolz zum Deutschen bekennen durfte, wenn man den Blick in die Vergangenheit richtete, sich aber schämen musste, wenn man die Gegenwart besah. Bei der Inflation hat man unser Volk noch erhöhen müssen, die Millionen Menschen um ihre Spargroschen beraubte. Alles angestiftet und alles gewagt und alles verantwortet von den Männern des Novembers 1918.
In 1923, Hitler and his followers attempted to seize power in Germany. However, this attempt was defeated by the existing government, landing Hitler in prison. While in prison, Hitler dictated his book Mein Kampf to his followers to write down. In this book, Hitler outlined his views on Aryan racial superiority, and he also talked about the inferiority of Jews, and how they were a blight on Germany, and how they must be extinguished. Hitler was released about a year later, and immediately went about reorganizing the Nazi Party, distributing more propaganda and making more public addresses. However, by the mid-1920s, the economy was recovering in Germany and people were happier for the most part, and it seemed as if Hitler's window for opportunity of seizing power had closed. However, in the early 1930s, the economic depression that had been crippling the United States spread to Germany, and Hitler once again found a country that was willing to listen to his message, and he knew that he could exploit it. Those who were willing to listen to Hitler were seduced by his words, and those who resisted him were subject to violent reprieval from Hitler's SA goons. Under intense political pressure in 1933, Germany's President Paul von Bismarck was forced to appoint Hitler as Chancellor, in effect his second in command. Once he had that position, Hitler quickly went about consolidating his power. A year later, when Paul von Bismarck died, Hitler was in sole power of Germany, and the Nazi era had begun.